Hello, reader. So we are going to look at idea number 12 of the Oak Bloke 25 for 25, which is once. Uh, this has got to be my favourite picture, possibly of the year. It just reminds me of Bunch's The Scream, anyway, um, apart from that, it's yeah. Uh, Isn't it a truism that water intelligence is about knowing when things are starting to flow faster? When you see a little Dutch boy running alarmedly from a dike, perhaps it's time for you to run too, don't you think? Just tickles me when I read that back. Anyway, I won't uh, wax lyrical too much about that because it's just a bit of fun. But the core of this is why did I choose water intelligence? And I almost didn't actually. I think it was, I was looking at various ideas, and this is one that I've been invested in for a while, and it hasn't really sort of gone anywhere. And I've looked at it a number of times and said, well, these guys have got some great products, this new technology. So they've got um, sewage monitoring that basically means that you don't have to send a bulky camera down a sewage pipe. You send a signal, like a pulse that will map the walls of the sewage pipe. So this mapping survey tool will do away with cameras and inspecting the brickwork and the sort of pipe work, which, to my mind, I mean, when you think of all the Victorian uh, sewerage that we have in the UK, and it's obviously the same over in Ireland, and even in the US. I mean, gosh, like some of their um, infrastructure is going to be old, and crumbling, and it's not just the UK that has these problems. So they also have their Versaliner that seems to have changed name a few times, but uh, it's now the ALD old liner, and it was the IntelliDitch at one point as well. So it's gone from IntelliDitch to Versaliner to old liner, it seems. Um, not sure quite why, but this water test was very impressive. That it kept 97.3% of the water, and that there was a really good flow of water. Whereas before, the city of Avon, bless them, had no water because the ditch that fed the water from the river, just the water soaked into the ground and it didn't reach the river, the city of Avon. So to go from nothing to 97.3 is quite an achievement. And again, you can kind of think, agriculture, different contexts where having something like that is a real game changer, So really like that technology as well. Simple, but actually quite could be pretty profound. And there's a few other things as well. The video-based training, the video commerce, the leak detector. This is rather than doing upgrade from the bucket test to and what this is doing is it's looking at the surface level of the water in the swimming pool, and it'll detect if it's moving downwards. Essentially, it's detecting uh, a leak. So it's using optics and computers to measure the exact level of water, taking into variables of evaporation, and precision to within thousandths of an inch. So you can definitively know whether you've got a swimming pool leak, and it's this one and done philosophy. Let's sort the problem out and make sure it's fixed. Whereas I guess other leak detectors will bish bash bosh, or should be all right. Give me a call if it's not, and then you have that whole cycle of problems. So yeah, really like all of that. Anyway, that's by the by. Wanted to work through my article, and why did I pick it? So I guess the thing that, as I say, I've held this share for a number of years. I forget exactly how many, but um, maybe two or three, and it's not really gone anywhere over that time. It's sort of stagnated, should we say? And it's kind of had a bit of let's go and look at the 10-year view. It's had some periods of time, yeah. So I've sort of bought in at around here, I think. So I'm pretty much at break even on it, small profit on it, but nothing, so part of me was thinking, "Well, should I just harvest it and get rid?" But I've always been conscious that I like the potential of it. I also like the fact that it's listed. It's got a large US business, and that it's predominant US business, to be fair. But they are looking to grow Australia. They're looking to grow Ireland. They've bought a business called Fecal. So sorry. Yeah, just it's just a bit unfortunate name, but anyway, um, yeah. So obviously they had this spike back in, what would that be, 2021, I guess, and it went great guns for a little bit, and then kind of came back down. So what to make of this, and why did it spike here? Well, I'd say. Yeah, I don't know why it spiked there. I think there was just a real run up of excitement in this, in the prospects of the share. So what's different this time? Well, I mean, at the end of the day, to my mind, what's different this time is the trajectory of profit. I mean, that's what's different. I mean, I can't speak for 2021 and what people expected and what brokers promised or guessed at. I don't know. I haven't gone back and double checked that. I don't really care. What I was interested in is splitting out the performance and sort of saying, well, what's the difference between 2022 and 2023? What's the difference between, you can see it here, what's the difference between this and this? What's the difference between this and this? So what I'm doing in these different columns is I'm taking the first half results, which are known. So the first half results are, I put them somewhere safe. Let's have a look. I think I've got them here actually. Yeah, so this is, oh, actually, no, that's the 2022 results. So what we want is the 2024 interim results, which are, let's have a look. Interim reports 20. So that's from, that looks to be from, no, it looks like their website's not up to date. That's a bit annoying. Let me, well, there's no RNS feed there either. Unless I'm missing that. Public documents. Right, let's find it. This, oh no, that's not it either. Public documents, annual announcements in the last 12 months. Here we go. Dear me. Interim results. I think either this is it, or Acquisition, final results. Yeah, I think it's back here. Here we go. I'm going to download that. Let's have a look. Let's place that in here and open it up. So interim 2024. Okay. Boom. Here we go. Right. So yeah, that's our latest results. So yeah, I've just transposed all of this into here. The revenue is let's have a look. That 41.5 is that 41.5 there of now. It's worth talking through this a little bit. Network sales refers to the idea that Water Intelligence sells through franchises and sells direct. So it has its own direct sales and called ALD, and then has franchisees that sell. And the way it works is the franchisee sales, they claim a cut, so 6.75% of revenue, and obviously also margin on product sales. So what we're looking at here is this is the direct revenue, and then the direct revenue is then made up of these things here. See it there, 41.5, that then make up that 41.5 there. So what we see is when we look at the 2022 to 2023, so we see some growth in international. We see some growth in America leak detection, which is the direct part of the business, and then we've got some growth here of 6% in product and overall growth of 3%. A year later, we see an acceleration of growth from 3 to 7 overall in the network, and some particular features would be the international has grown out a great deal. Now, part of that is fecal. Fecal is part of that growth, so it's growth by acquisition rather than organic. Okay, but what we're also seeing is growth in ALD. So another feature here is that we've got franchises that are being bought back, being brought under direct, and there's been quite a number of those. Quite a number of those franchises that have been brought back in during 2023 and 2024. So culminating actually in the Dallas franchise, which is a bit of a flagship franchise, and that was announced late in 2024. So we're seeing acceleration, and these numbers, by the way, if you see that, that's is taken from that column there. What I'm doing is I'm taking the H1 numbers, doubling them to get them to annualized. Okay, so I'm just sort of assuming that the revenue doubles up in the second half. What we're also then seeing is, well, we've also got third quarter results now. We don't get disclosure on what the cost of sale is, what the gross profit is, any of that. We do get just sales data. So what we see is the royalty income has dropped. So we don't know what the network sales are. We don't know what the franchisee sales are here, but we know that royalty income has dropped. So that suggests that if we read backwards, that would be a corresponding drop there as well. And franchisee product income has dropped, whereas what we also see then is international has grown. So what I'm saying here is that I'm taking the 4.1 number, so that's the first half sales, halving them, okay, and then so 2.05 would be the half of 4.1, and then saying, well, comparing that to 3.2, That's how I'm arriving at 56%, because 3.2 is 56% larger than 2.05. Okay, so we see a really, really strong growth here for international in the third quarter. We also see some growth here on direct sales. Okay, so everything's heading in the right direction. What we then see is, and we'll come on to the 2025 in a minute, but let's get back into the article. So this article sort of shows, the 6 month, the 9 month, and then the annualized, where I'm just sort of doubling it up to get there. So crunching the data, as I say here, there's 2 franchisees that are dropping out of the numbers, and those were the sales prior to them dropping out. And when I say dropping out, they're sort of coming out of the one pot and into the other pot. The big difference here is that the reason they're buying back franchises, and I've seen some commentators kind of say, oh, well, surely that's a sign of weakness that they can't grow the business. Far from it. I mean, you just don't understand the business model if you're saying things like that. The reason they do this is because they're making 6.75% margin on franchise sales. But if they bring it back direct, average margin is 29%. So the margin quadruples. That's why they're doing it. It's basically, achieving sales at a higher margin. Simple as that. I mean, what you'll see and this is in perhaps some prior articles where I do this, but I've actually kind of talked about how you can work out the sort of return on investment of taking over a franchise in other articles. It's worth looking that up. Essentially, it's the improved margin, what synergies you believe you'll get, the cost savings, the all the different factors, and essentially you get a return on investment. And what I've found is typically the return on investment's very, very, very strong, and that's why they do it, because it makes sense. So yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is, if my model's right, we should see the franchise income drop by about 130,000, and it does drop by 130,000. So this 1.65 that we see here, compare that to 3.55 here, is a 130,000 drop. Now, I do point out, though, that the product income is static, and because we've lost 6% of franchisees, 6% of value, that's sort of not numerical, but of the value, that actually that's pointing to 93% or 94% are still achieving the same product income, which suggests that the remaining 94% have grown the income. Sorry, it's 93 that I use in the prior comparative. So what we're seeing is we're seeing growth in ALD, which is what we're expecting to see, because the franchisee income moves across to ALD, which is the direct, and the growth is only 2%. So I'm sort of pointing out this bit here, the 2% here, but 2% a quarter, and of course last year it was 12%. Sorry. Last year it was 6.6%. The annualized number here, if we're doubling this doubling this up, would be 12%. So it was sort of 6.1% in the first half, which if you double up would be 12.3. And what we're saying is, well, it's 6.15 plus 2, so it's 8.15 plus whatever they do in the fourth quarter, which, if they do another 3%, then it's 12% growth for the year. But that's pretty impressive, I think, because obviously this is high margin stuff. It's based out of same location, so they're not growing their overhead. They're not growing costs. They're sweating their costs better. So that for me is a real positive. And the international as well, really positive, 39%, 39.5%. And again, that is that's the year on year, and that does include some acquisitions. Fecal was part of that. So I say here, we have to, before we get too giddy and excited, we have to say, well, Fecal had sales of 4 million, so a part of that will be Fecal because it was acquired in July. So in the third quarter, 0.8 million. 0.8 is Fecal, and then really the remainder, the 1.15, so the difference is 0.35. I mean, that's still 1.4 annualized, which is still 33%. So it's still strong, still good, even when you strip out the Fecal number, assuming that we're taking like the prior year number as extrapolating that into 2024. I mean, this was really encouraging. That margins are steady. That's all positive. That tells me the product mix is the same or similar. That tells me that we're not sort of the costs haven't suddenly gone up. So for me, that was really good to see. We see that the adjusted EBITDA is somewhat behind. The profit before tax is below expectations, 7.7 million. Because the run rate should be higher. We also then see that, and this was in another. Somebody said that Dowgate believe the adjusted profit should be 9.6 for the year and then 11.2 for next year. Now I saw those numbers and went, really? Because I think this was the comment here. All told, generates 200 million, forecast to deliver this, climb into this, putting it on a compelling 12.8 PER, falling to 11.2, equivalent to 0.8 price earnings growth. Right. Well, we don't know how they arrive at those numbers is the first thing. I mean, there's just some numbers on so we don't know how they get to those numbers. But when I look at 9.6 for a start, so we've got 6 million in the bank. So we're saying the second half is going to be 3.6. So when I saw that, my obviously the natural inclination was to sort of say, well, hang on, that's 40% down on the first half. So that doesn't feel like growth. How can you say it's growth when it's 40% less? And then it was, I kind of went, well, hang on a minute, what happened last year, the year before, and the year before that? So I guess I at that point took a bit of humble pie and said, well, don't ask me to be a water intelligent person. If I'm running from a dike, just ignore me. But I just naturally assumed that winter time, when frozen pipes and all of that malarkey happens, that you'd have more business in the winter, in the second half, than the summer, and that margins would be pretty static throughout the year. That just didn't turn out to be the case. I mean, sales is pretty steady. There's no vast seasonality between first half and second half sales that I can tell. And what I've done is I've looked at this over, and you'll see it here. I've looked at this over 4 years to kind of arrive to this. But this profit before tax, the second half profit is always a lot lower now. Some readers came up with some really helpful ideas on this and said, well, it's not the sales, it's the costs. So the margin is lower in the second half. And one reader said it was because they have their annual conference and the costs of that are very extensive and eat into profits. And they obviously recognize the cost of at the annual conference only in the second half of the year. And I kind of thought, actually, okay, yeah, that must be one heck of a party, but let's go with that as part of it. I also considered that there's probably some costs like year-end costs of audit. They're presumably like putting the cost of that into the second half. The cost of obviously the final year accounts, the cost of share options to people, bonuses to people. There's probably a whole load of stuff that they're recognizing into the second half. Now, from my point of view, again, just trying to match revenue and costs, I don't like that. I'd rather that they did it consistently over the whole year. By the way, I don't know that precisely that these costs are, exactly as I say. It's just my supposition as to why the profit in the second half of every year for the last 4 years is lower than the first half. Is that I don't think they're splitting their costs out over the whole year, but they should be, in my opinion. That the fact that the audit happens in the second half of the year and gets recognised in the second half of the year, well, you're auditing the financial year, so you should count half of it into the first and half of it into the second. I don't categorically know that they're not doing that, but that's what I suspect's going on. And the annual conference, I mean, you do it once a year. We should just recognise that over the course of the whole year, not just into the second half of the year. So, I kind of felt there was, this shouldn't be as nuanced as it is, but anyway, it is. So on the basis that the profit, this number here, 3.6, and I've used the Dowgate number 3.6 here for this this bar here. You'll see it there to get to that 9.6. So you can see there's growing profits, and you can see it there with the curve. It's remarkably consistent actually, but I guess the next thing I started to think about was, well, let's compare sort of the 3Q results to the 4Q results. So to arrive to this 3.6 for the second half, we already know the sales for the third quarter. We know that the margins are consistent. Okay, so on the basis that the profits were 1.9 in the third quarter, we're therefore saying that profits are going to drop in the fourth quarter. Now, I'll take you back to the. Actually, let's stay. Otherwise, I'll lose my place. Let's take you back to this. So something that's growing at, double digits, growing probably at double digits, growing at nearly double digits, is suddenly going to plummet, is suddenly going to reduce in the fourth quarter. I find that quite hard to believe. So I don't think these numbers, these guesses are accurate at all. I think that the 3.6 is undercooking it. And the other thing that I just don't think has been thought through is that you've got the Texas franchise coming on board from early November. The sales of that alone is going to drive 2.1 million. I mean, again, just based on extrapolating the prior sales, the 2023 sales into 2024. I just don't get where you could drop your profit to 1.7 in the fourth quarter. So, to my mind, 2.1 adjusted profit felt like it was correct, and that's considering the Texas franchise. That's considering an extrapolation of profit. So it's essentially taking the trajectory and continuing it. That's all I'm doing. I'm not saying that it's going to increase further from the trajectory. I'm just using the trajectory to come up with that 2.1. But by doing that, what we see is an acceleration in in compared to prior years, and that for me is uh, the reason that it, you know, almost didn't become part of the 25 for 25 and then did, was I was like, aha, that was my aha moment. Profits are accelerating. Um, and I kind of say that there. I'm getting pretty excited now. I don't know if you can tell, but anyway, the yeah, they talk about there being a consistency. They, we've talked about this already. So capital allocation, they talk about a four-prong approach. So they talk about increasing free cash flow. Um, and that's all fair enough. That um, that like, to my mind, that's not part of that's not so much a capital allocation thing, though. I found this sentence a bit irritating. And the reason I find it irritating is because it's like, well, um, that capital allocation isn't going to increase your free cash flow. Your operations are going to increase your free cash flow. I just, it's, yeah, I found it a bit strange. Organic growth, that they're executing increasing backlogs. I've just found was like a really strange sentence. I had a I kind of had to think about it, and the idea popped into my head that I think they mean that they're investing in training to increase the capacity of technicians to reduce backlogs. So execute increasing backlogs. um, yeah, it was a bit cryptic. Um, the news of the Pulse going to America, the Pulse product, that's been very successful in the UK, going to America, very positive, I think, very positive. But nothing about Versaliner or Old Liner, as it's now been renamed for the third time. No news on Ireland. I was disappointed about that. But look, I mean, it's a third quarter update. Then, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing what they say in the full year update. For me, that's the one that's going to matter. Um, I think having listened to an interview with the new CEO of Water Intelligence, that excites me. I think the he was the managing director of the Texas franchise and has now taken the role of chief executive officer. I also sort of went on to kind of consider this 2025 number. So again, it's been guessed at 11.2, and I looked at that and said, well, so we're talking of, on the basis that the guess for 2024 from them is 9.6, they're therefore saying that there's a 1.6, so it's that plus that equals that there's going to be a 1.6 growth. But when you consider the Dallas franchise, moving from that royalty to that margin, I mean, that is 1.35 based upon 6 million of sales. So what the 11.2 therefore represents 250,000 increase in profit in 2025, and that's going to be 250,000 for the synergies, because I don't know if you've been to these places, but these are sort of it's probably the best equivalent I can come up with. Is it's like sort of saying, you've got a franchise in Westminster and you've got a franchise in London. They're like, now they're pretty much the same place. Westminster's got absorbed into London. I don't know if you know that, but City of London and the City of Westminster were actually two different cities, and now obviously Westminster is just part of London, and that's true of Fort Worth. Maybe some Fort Worthians are not going to thank me for saying that, but Dallas has pretty much swallowed up Fort Worth. So So there's some obvious synergies, and if you look at them on the map, I think I did look at them on the map, and they were about 7 miles away from each other, something like that. I mean, yeah, pretty obvious that you can close one of the offices and other things to cut costs. So if you close an office, get rid of some admin, costs, things like that. I mean, you could get 250,000 from just that, if not more. I mean, these are big operations. Um, we've obviously also got the cross sell and upsell for Texas, a strongly growing area. We've got the rollout of the sewage, the Pulse product in the US and in Ireland. We know that there's work going on to grow the Australian business. We know that there's work going on to win work in Ireland and across the EU. We know that there's just natural growth. I mean, 250,000, give me a break. Like, that's just, if they only grow it by 250,000, then I'll eat my Paddy Ashdown hat. So yeah, look, I just saw that as just completely undercooking it. So I've come up with some other numbers, and obviously these numbers are a lot higher, a lot higher. But I do believe that all I'm doing here is so I'm saying, compared to the 2024 numbers, which are, obviously, as I said before, these are sort of doubling up the H1 numbers. I'm saying royalty income is going to drop because of the loss of the Texas franchise. The direct sales are going to grow. Franchise product income, I'm just assuming that that's going to remain static as it did in 2024. I believe that we're going to see a really big growth around waters, the international business. So that's the Australian, Ireland, UK businesses, EU, I can see some growth there. This is partly down to growing the Dallas, the acquisition of the Dallas business, but it's the growth of the other businesses. So I've sort of come up with my own numbers that are a lot higher, but I just feel they're more realistic. Again, just extrapolating past performance to kind of I think I'm quite excited by how this will transform, because I think when you see those accelerations and you see here that I'm also looking at some level of growth of margin as well, because the product mix is increasing and the product margin on own products is higher um, than services. So that that acceleration in performance in 2025 that I'm estimating, which is this 24.22 million. I mean, if we take that back into sterling terms, I mean that's going to be about 19 million, which on a 70 million share, I mean we're talking a PE of 4. I mean, which is incredibly cheap. So PE of 4, I mean, this should be a PE of 10, if not more. So that implies, if I'm right, that the share has got 100 to 150% upside from its current £4. So that puts it as eight to £10. And I don't think these numbers are a particular stretch. I mean, we're only talking, that the whole thing grows by 10% in 2025. The bit that's different, and the bit that's the bit that's going to grow the profits is the change of mix, the change of how much is being done by franchisees versus direct versus the ALD part of the business, and some growth in margin due to product mix. So don't feel that that's an unreasonable set of assumptions, and then backed up by things like the Salesforce system that they're employing, the new leadership, The other thing I say in the article is I say, well, on the basis that um, um, on the basis that it might not be in this article, but I think in the prior article where I talk about the Texas, let me just see if I can grab that, because it's worth just quickly, yeah, in WATR leader. Just put this up on screen. In WATR leader, yeah, that's my profit calculator for taking on a franchise. So that's where I've worked through the numbers. So the Dallas acquisition is a 20% simple 20% return, and that's based upon me assuming, that we've got the sales, so that the increase in margin is 1.35. The upside I'm putting as 0.65. The upside product performance, so increase of product sales, 0.4. And then there's the cost of acquisition, 12, minus the assets that are being brought in, which is 0.3, so that's 11.7. So 2.4 of gains to 11.7 of losses. Now this 12 here, is interesting. It's interesting. That I also sort of compared it to prior franchise acquisitions. So the Fresno one was 2.6, the Pittsburgh one was 3. But part of this is, and by the way, this is sort of at the annual conference. So clearly they, it's a lot of money going into the hats that they all wear, probably. But anyway, that 12 million kind of assumes that the profit of Dallas is going to increase by 2.3 times in 3 years. I mean, have a think about that, because what we're saying then is that this currently is delivering, so it would be 29% of the 6 million. So it's delivering about 2 million now. So this guy's got to grow the profits by 230%, which is about 4.5 million. So he's got to deliver quite a chunky increase in profits to get his 12 million. That's the first thing to say. The that there's sort of a mixture of sales and costs. This is the two sites, by the way, and there's the Dallas Fort Worth Airport. So this is downtown Dallas by here, and over here is the Fort Worth city centre, I think, if my memory serves me. But anyway, yeah, the sort of talk about the growth of Texas and the growth of yeah, and this 12 million is made up of these payments here, but he also gets options here. So potentially these options, and this is based upon the share price going up to $10. So the forecast price that I just talked about, actually, so that would be sort of $10 would be £8 a share. So he would get 200,000 share options if at that strike price. So in other words, it would make no sense for him to use his options unless unless the share price has risen. Otherwise, he'd be making a loss, which would make no sense. So yeah, it's quite interesting. To my mind, the 1.1% dilution was, if he can double the share price, well, 1.1% is a small price to pay. So yeah, look, I think the this increase, I mean, this is going to be a question mark as to, we are seeing a sort of ratcheting up of income. of profit, but not a really big ratcheting up of turnover. It's 10% turnover, which is in keeping to the past. Um, and a couple of other things I've pointed out before. I mean, the work they're doing with insurers, I think, when you consider that 1 in 60 insurance claims is for water damage, that the partnerships they have with those insurance companies could be a big area of growth. That's not something they had until now. This partnership with Ferguson in the US is massive as well. The Ferguson are a 29 billion turnover plumbing business. So to sell old liner and the Pulse products and other products into Ferguson sites is another opportunity. And this is why I believe that my numbers aren't actually that aggressive, is that you've only got to get a very small level of penetration into Ferguson to drive those numbers, and the margins are going to be the margins are going to be growing. So that just to sort of summarize, then there's been a lot of investment. I mean, that's kind of what I've seen over the past 2 years, is a lot of investment into the Salesforce system, into the training of people, into growing new areas of the business like Australia and Ireland. This EU contract work is another upside. So there's lots and lots of upsides, and I think just because we've seen a fairly flat performance over the past few years, I believe this year it's going to be different. 2025 is going to be different, and that's what the numbers are showing me, telling me. So hopefully talking through that's been useful. Do like, share, and all of that fun stuff. Subscribe if you so wish, and cheerio for now.